There it is.
Hello everyone. Welcome to this. I have Gabrielle here with me, who is a shaker now for more than a decade, a TRE facilitator, and quite experienced with the shake. So I wanted to bring Gabrielle on today to gather fresh insights and hear your story and what experiences you've had, what stands out for you, and just get a fresh take on this whole therapeutic tremoring and how it just moves people in different ways. So thank you, Gabrielle, for being here. How are you today?
Oh, fantastic. And thank you for inviting me and for the space, the opportunity to share our journey, and it may be beneficial to other people out there. Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. So yeah, maybe I'd love to hear. Can you tell us how you got into shaking in the first place?
Yeah, I started maybe meditating 17 years ago, I think, out of interest, not because I had a goal or a purpose. I was just curious about it. So yeah, I got into Eckhart Tolle and Adyashanti, Osho, Muji, all sorts of people. And, started to get some insights, beautiful insights into the things they were saying. And but at one particular point, I kind of figured out that it's about awareness. So I started practicing awareness. And initially, it was awareness of my external environment, sounds, sights, and whatever was happening. But then I started taking that awareness to the internal environment. So, okay, I'm aware of what's happening outside, but now started to become aware of what's happening inside. And I don't know why I did that, because I'm not a yogi, and I actually didn't have much interest in the body, to be honest. But I understood that there was an awareness of something internal. So I started paying attention to the internal. And one of the things that happened for me in that time, I was practicing awareness of the internal movements and thoughts and emotions. And I noticed that there was a natural, spontaneous realignment of the spine. So I used to slouch a lot. And I noticed that as soon as I brought the awareness to the body to see what's there, the spine would naturally realign itself effortlessly. And I'm saying this because I actually didn't understand the significance of it. So I just thought that's cool, but I didn't really understand how profound that is. The spinal movement. It doesn't stop there. It actually expands. It goes deeper than that. And I'll tell you the story of how I came back to that as well. But at the same time, I was practicing breath awareness. And one night was really unusual for me. I woke up in the middle of the night, and I had to get out of bed, which is something I never do. But this time I sensed I had to get out of bed. And so I got out of bed and I went into my living room floor, and I just lay down on the living room floor because I didn't know what I was there for. But as soon as I lay down on the living room floor, I felt heat and energy in my feet, which I had never felt before. And that moved into my legs, and then it moved into the upper body. And when it moved into the upper body, I started experiencing shaking, tremoring, shaking. I call it shaking. I didn't even think of the word tremoring, just shaking.
Yeah.
And it went on for maybe a couple of minutes. And it was quite interesting because it was not triggered by anything. I was not specifically meditating. I was not tense or stressed. It just happened by itself.
And you didn't
And I
know what
thought,
it was before that moment? Yeah.
I had not read anything about that or looked into it or had an interest about it. It just spontaneously happened. It's like
It's just like
something
my
switched on.
experience. So that's really
Wow,
cool.
wow.
We
Yeah.
both came into it within ourselves. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
not something that I searched or, not consciously searched for. I'm sure there was an inner, something happening, but I was not a yogi, not interested in yoga or any body work, no Tai Chi, no, nothing like that. So suddenly I think this experience took me deeper into the body and it opened up this process. So what I noticed is that maybe for the first 2 weeks, my body would shake at random times. Like I would be walking down the streets and it would start shaking, and that, And I call it random at the time, but I think it was not random at all. It's just that what I noticed after a few weeks is whenever I meditated, my body would shake. So whenever I would drop out of the head into the body would start releasing. So even if I was walking down the street, at lunchtime after work, and I would drop out of the head into a contemplative state, meditative state, the body was already to shake. So for me, it was the meditation that was kind of the catalyst. Is just stop thinking, coming out of the headspace. And then when we come out of the headspace, there's now more energy in the body to do something. And I guess the first thing that it wants to do is it wants to clean, the tension that's there, the trauma, the anxiety, or whatever it might be. That's its job. It's very it doesn't wait for tomorrow. If you give it the opportunity, it's just very clinical and very precise, and it just goes to work straight away. And
Yeah,
it helps us straight away. It's kind of there effortlessly.
It's I always say it's like an intelligence of our nervous system to just go right into those blockages. Like it's like an immune system for our nervous system. I like to draw the analogy, and it just is like the shaking, the intelligence is just like goes into that tension, that charge, that emotion, that trauma, and not from a logical place, but from our animalistic instinct. And it's so powerful. That's really
it is.
cool. Thank you.
I
What
think
a nice
beautiful
origin story.
origin, yeah. I asked a Buddhist monk. I happened to meet a Buddhist monk in the city one day, and I asked her about this shaking, and she said, "I don't know, my son. I can't help you there." So she didn't tell me anything about it. And I had done a bit of research online, but I couldn't find anything at the time. So I basically concluded that I had this model of Kundalini energy, and I was not into Kundalini, but I had seen one of those spirit science videos, I think. Have you ever seen those spirit science videos? The cartoons?
I've seen some things. There's quite a few out there, I think, and I've studied Kundalini, so I'm familiar with
I had
that.
seen something
Yeah.
like that, and it just said that basically when Kundalini comes through, of course it's more potent. Kundalini is quite strong, but I understood it as energy coming through and dislodging anything that is stuck. So in my mind, I kind of thought, for the next 7 or so years, I kind of thought, while I'm meditating, energy is coming through, it's cleansing my body, and I'm going to leave it at that. So, and I didn't interfere with it. So this is a difference between, I think, what you have done and what I have done. And I think it's beautiful what you have done because you actually investigated the tremor mechanism, whereas I didn't investigate it. I kind of, for 7 years, would meditate and allow it to unfold, but I didn't actually investigate it. I didn't interfere with it. I just knew it was there when I would meditate, and it was gone when I wouldn't meditate. So I want to highlight this because we can come across it, but if we don't investigate it, we can't go as deeply into it as we could. And that's why I think shaking medicine as a practice and what you have done is really powerful, because it's like you discovered it yourself, but then you kind of went, how can I replicate this, and how can I teach others to get into it, right? So that is a really amazing thing.
Yeah.
Both what you've done and Dr. David Baselli, with TRE, they actually looking at the mechanism, understood what it is, and then let's apply it to other people. Let's see how this can benefit, and do research and find all sorts of things. So I think it's important because there's meditators out there potentially that come across this practice too, and if they don't understand the value of it, they may not look into it deeply enough, like I did. It still benefited me because I meditated every day, but with TRE and shaking medicine, I have another entry point, and I can explore it a lot deeper as well.
Yeah, well, thank you for that. And there's actually a lot of people, relatively large amount of people that I hear that first have accessed it in meditational places, states, often coming out of a vipassana, where they often do their first really deep dive into meditation. 10 hours a day for 10 days is the standard vipassana. And so many I say so many, like many times people have told me they've been there and their body starts like going, and then the Vipassana teachers, and actually most people out there still don't really know what this is, especially a lot of, these meditation teachers, yoga teachers, um, fitness trainers. Like, it is changing, more than ever know about this, but it's still very common that like your yoga teacher or your whoever it is isn't aware of this. The Buddhist monk,
Mhm. Yeah.
I was even talking to someone last night about indigenous cultures, and one of our roots, I like to say, is indigenous cultures. I try to get inspired by the most ancient roots of people who've been exploring this for the longest. And in my research so far, what I can tell is that it seems that indigenous cultures all over the world innately have used this for very long time, because this is an animalistic mechanism that we evolved with. But even in indigenous cultures lately, the elders and such often have largely forgotten about this. Like I
Mm.
live in Australia often, and I've asked indigenous elders there about it, and they're just like, "No, I don't know what that is." But then I watch their ceremonial dances, and they're essentially like mimicking this in certain ways in their dance. So it's like it's lived on through their ceremony, but it's seems to me that the mechanism itself has kind of been lost due to colonization and such.
Mm.
So one of our messages, me and David, Berselli, and all the people sharing it out there, one of our big goals, I feel, is to bring awareness to this, and doing a a session like this with you, where we get to share our stories, I think is putting big seeds into the world to help people become aware. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
So
I used to dance salsa, you know. I started
yeah.
dancing salsa in my 20s, and I stopped dancing because I have a family and other things going on. But on a number of occasions when I go back to salsa, I see the shimmy in salsa, you know, and you instantly
Mm,
recognize, oh, you know, this is actually, you know, therapeutic. It's, yeah, it's there to music, but it's also, where did it initially come from, the shimmy? It must have come from a primal instinct to do that, you know,
yeah, like,
because
oh,
it's beautiful, it's beneficial. And
and like the
quite
way animals
often,
shake water off, it's like it's basically the shimmy, up the
yeah, it's the
spine.
shimmy. Absolutely. And in salsa, they move the diaphragm a lot, you know, when they dance, like the Colombian salsa. And that is
Mm,
really important, you know, that diaphragm movement. And of course, they have like good hip movement as well. So it's the way that when they dance, they rotate the hips and they use their legs as well. So I noticed that, you know, wow, even in something like salsa, we are mimicking these movements with music to dance, but really they're therapeutic movements. And you can tell that someone who dances salsa freely for their whole lifetime has a different energy about them as well, because they're constantly, you know, engaged in the body and expressing that as well.
yeah, 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 yeah. No doubt, I love it. So for about 7 years, you were saying you explored tremoring in your own intuitive way. Did I get that
I
number
didn't
about right?
I didn't actually explore it. I kind of continued with my meditation, and the tremors were
Yeah, yeah.
always there. So from that point onwards, from that night onwards that I
Uh,
woke up, the tremors were there in parallel with my meditation. And I kind
and
of
you allowed
understood,
it.
I allowed it. So I
Yeah,
understood
yeah.
not to interfere with them, not to kind of, you know, suppress them or poke them in any direction. But so that's good, that's great. But I think the next step would be to actually look at the tremor, where, you know, what is it, and to really actually acknowledge it and to be with it, whereas I didn't. And that's where TRE came in maybe 4 or so years ago, by chance, you know. And when I came across TRE the first time, I thought, well, this looks cool. I can resonate with the movements in TRE. That's what's happening for me. But I had a question mark. I thought, this process is instigated by the individual, whereas for me, it happens naturally. So I had a little bit of doubt or a little bit of question. Well, am I going to play with fire here? Poking something that maybe I shouldn't be poking. But I gave it a go, and TRE teaches us to activate the tremors safely and to deactivate the tremors when we need to. So we use the process of 7 out of 10, or the intensity of 7 out of 10. So then I saw that there was an inbuilt safety mechanism so that people can safely start the process and then stop if they need to. And, it's called titration. If you can do that, if you don't go past your 7 out of 10, you're actually not going to overwhelm your nervous system. And in that, you're actually developing a beautiful relationship with your nervous system, because the nervous system knows you're not going to push it too far. So that in itself is the beautiful process. It's a trust in between you and the nervous system. Hey, as soon as you've had enough, I'm going to stop. That's enough, And I think that in itself is a beautiful way to integrate and to unfold with the whole process. So I saw that and I thought, yeah, this is safe. This is good. This is actually very respectful of the nervous system, the individual, and everything. It's actually a very therapeutic practice, a beautiful intelligence to do that. And I saw that with doing TRE, I actually had another entry point into the shaking mechanism, which is beneficial, therapeutic. But I also saw that I had another entry point into meditation, because if you shake, essentially at the end of the shake, you're going to be in a meditative state, which is what you want as a meditator. So I think we discussed this before. It's like a full circle. You start meditating and you end up shaking. You start shaking and you end up meditating. They're not separate in a way.
Yeah, they're definitely not separate. I have a whole yoga analogy for this, actually, that I love to use, and I feel like it's very potent and it fits in here really beautifully. Basically, in yoga, we're doing, let's say, westernized yoga. I'm not talking about like ancient traditional, but the way we've westernized it and tend to use it often is we go from asana and pranayama, which is working the physical and the energetic parts, the outer layers of our being. And I'm talking to the koshas here. We have basically 5 layers to unravel and get through to reach the yogic states of union and enlightenment, as they call it. And what's happening is we're doing a lot of yoga asana and pranayama, which is basically breath work, to open these outer 2 layers. And then we're going into meditational practices, which really focus on the final 2 layers. So then there's this middle layer that to me seems to be largely missing in the yogic world. And this is the you could call it the emotional kosher. I like to think of it as like the level of the nervous system. And this, a lot of this is healed, I feel, through the somatic work, the cathartic release, the spontaneous release through autogenic movement, that like therapeutic tremoring and pendiculation. And so what happens is, what I've seen is when people, including myself, this is like my own experience as well, when people do the tremoring and the emotional and trauma release, then they shake and tremor, and then naturally their body eventually comes to the deepest stillness that perhaps it's ever reached, where spontaneously meditation starts to arise and becomes easy, much easier, and much more efficient, because basically what I've gathered is it's just really quite hard and difficult and not so efficient to meditate in a traumatized body. So that's just put it in a yoga lens there, this is a very important missing link to the healing process. I feel most people, and the thing is, also to add to that is that letting go of control is the piece that's important here to allow this autogenic movement and the animalistic nervous system mind to allow the unraveling and the release. So letting go of control. Most people aren't letting go of control in their world at all. And even all these other yoga practices I mentioned are control, like ways of controlling the mind, body, and breath. And so we need to strike the right balance of doing that sort of stuff with, okay, now I'm just going to surrender, let go of control, and allow the shaking mechanism or other mechanisms to discharge the pent up energy in the system. So thanks for sharing that. I feel like that's an important piece of the puzzle that should be expressed here.
I think it is a fear of losing control with practices like shaking medicine and TRE. I think, imagine a lot of people out there would say, I think there's the word involuntary tremors as well, which is not helpful because it's not something that most people are going to say, yeah, I want to get into something that there's involuntary, you know, or if it's involuntary, who's doing it? You know, you're opening yourself up to something out there that's yeah, it's not something that you want to join. I don't see it as involuntary at all, because the more you look at it, you realize there is nothing involuntary here. It's totally voluntary and beneficial. Like it's such a beautiful thing, you know, to be releasing tension, releasing trauma, to be feeling calm and peaceful and connected. There's a beauty in that. There's an intelligence. It's phenomenal. So it's not involuntary. It's and I try and tell people, you know, hey, when you're shaking, recognize that you're getting in touch with a deeper aspect of yourself, a deeper intelligence that knows how to take care of you rather than something which is involuntary. It's like automated. And if we say it's automated, then it's kind of like unintelligent. It's just an automated practice and it's unintelligent. And we can dismiss it because, yeah, it's not that smart, but it's highly intelligent, these movements. I think you're referring to them as autogenic movements now, yeah?
Yeah. I've with a recent I did a recent workshop with Richmond Heath. He shared some TRE to the shaking medicine community for the first time. I've been wanting to get an official TRE journey by, you know, an official TRE teacher introduced into our shaking medicine community, and yeah, I he really inspired me there to lean more towards that this is not just about therapeutic tremoring, but autogenic movement in general. And I'd already been exploring like pendiculation a lot in my teachings for a few years now, along with the therapeutic tremoring. So more and more, it's like really becoming a fusion of those two being a big part and others. And I'd like to say also, I totally agree with you about this. It not being involuntary, so to speak. It's like it's more nuanced than that. That is a surface level way to look at it, but it's not like it just takes over us in random moments and we can't do anything about it. It's more like we feel an energy within us, and it's like, oh, do I choose to go into it now, or do I choose to go into it later when I'm at home and I'm safe in a safe space? It's usually more like that. Or if it does start, it's like, oh, we can turn it off and allow it later. If we want, like we can will it to turn on or to turn off. So in that sense, it's not involuntary. I guess the involuntary piece comes in like once we allow it, it's like it kind of like moves us how it wants to move us, not how we think we should move it
Mm.
from the logical mind. So yeah, it's like this. If we really dive deep into what that means, I see it. Yeah, I'm in deep agreement with you there.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
yeah, I see it as discovering an aspect of myself outside of my intellect, which is also an intelligence, but it's not a verbal intelligence. It's a different kind of intelligence. So then it kind of, it's beautiful. It's like, let me see what my intelligence is here. My intelligence moves this way or that way and releases here, but it is my intelligence. It is me. And then I have a different relationship with it then, because I know it's a relationship with me and my own intelligence. So why not use both the intellect and that as well in unison? So it's more like an expansion of intelligence rather than a meeting of something outside of myself that's doing the movement.
Yeah. In a Taoist perspective, they might call it like integrating our different minds, like our
Okay.
instinctive gut mind, intuitive heart mind, and our wisdom intellectual mind.
Yeah.
Ideally, we want them to communicate and work together, not separately. So I kind of see it like that. It's like once the all three, intuition, instinct, logic, kind of merge, that's when we're in a flow state. We're on our path,
Yeah.
and things get easy because we don't have these inner conflicts with, like, our logic isn't saying something different than our emotional mind or our gut instincts. And that's this sort of practice helps us get there, because I don't know about you, but Tremoring has opened my intuition so deeply, my feeling intelligence, my capacity to be resilient and to feel and sense the subtle
Mm.
in the world. Has has it been like that for you? Or?
Yeah. I mean, I think so. Yes. I think a mixture of meditation and, I continue with self-inquiry and contemplation and shaking, and they're still parallel for me. So they still all happen in parallel. So I can't pinpoint sometimes which one did what, but I think it's the
Yeah.
three of them together, or those things together. But certainly intuition has skyrocketed, especially when I started TRE, learning TRE to be a facilitator, because I was in front of people and I recognized that, I am not a trauma expert and I'm not a psychologist or anything like that. So what do I have to give in front of someone who is, releasing tension and pain? I think that's when intuition started to really come on board, and I started sensing people's bodies inside my body, so their pains, whether it's in their chest or throat or head. So I started feeling, because I guess my own body was opening up to itself, but now it's opening up to the body in front of it as well. And it's the same intelligence operating to help me, and now it's operating to help another. So the intuition to feel another person and then to touch appropriately that pain point, to help them recognize that and to help them move with that. So I think it's all there to create movement, to create flow. Otherwise, there's a stuckness, I guess, and we remain stuck. But these movements get us unstuck, and then the practitioner can assist by pointing either verbally or physically to that which is stuck. Yeah. So yeah, it's been a beautiful process to take it. And I think that's why TRE and shaking medicine is beautiful, because you can, rather than it being just a process for myself, which it was for 7 years, I didn't share this with anyone because I didn't think anyone would be interested in that. I thought, oh, wow, this is something unique that Gabrielle does in meditation. But with shaking medicine and TRE, you can actually help assist others, but also it deepens yourself because you are there for someone else. So it's an extension of the shaking, or an extension of your own shaking. And I'm sure you found now, even with touch, sometimes like the touch will be a shake on the person, like a little tremor to actually get something going. So it's almost like the shake is going from yourself to someone else to assist. Initially, I resisted that because I thought maybe people think I'm trying to manipulate or to consciously move them, but it's actually it's what feels right to go into the person.
Yeah, oh my God. So much to speak to there. I indeed I get that with people. I do a lot of body work with people as well through Zen Tai Shiatsu, but then also my shaking medicine comes through the touch very, very often, probably more than half the time, even if people haven't even done therapeutic tremoring of any sort before. Because, well, to speak to the sensitivity again, it when we do this work to clear ourselves, it makes us simultaneously really sensitive and resilient. So we can feel people, that energy in people, that charge that shaking medicine or TRE can discharge. It's just like we're super sensors to it now. It's like we've done the work to clear, and now it's like we can feel it in others. So yeah,
Mm,
very often when I'm giving body work, I can just find that point. Sometimes it's as simple as just like on it with a finger and their whole body starts like going, you know, oftentimes I'm in a deep like Zen Tai gesture where I'm like unwinding their fascia, working with their shoulder, and I'm like, oh, there's a point. And then I get their, support because their arm and to going into spontaneous release, or it could be anywhere in their body. And I have so much fun doing it. I love working at that level. I will say, like, I feel like it's important to not just do that, but to encourage the person to have a self practice of this stuff as well. Because I
mm,
feel like ultimately that's how they're going to empower themselves with it versus like, oh, every time I want to do that, I need to go see Keith or Gabrielle to get a session. Like, I think that's more of like to support the journey, but not to like do it for them. I've
of
always had
course.
this tenet in my philosophy of this is like, we're about empowering, supporting, empowering others to awaken this from within because we're all born with this autogenic movement capability. We're born with it. It's evolved in our nervous systems over probably billions of years, but at least hundreds of millions in the nervous system of animals. And Mother Nature did it well. She designed this thing that just is really good at bringing us into homeostasis, into balance. So that's one thing that's beautiful to hear that you've opened that sensitivity of feeling this in others really acutely. I've noted this like I train teachers in Shaky medicine. I noticed quite a few of them. Like I witness when they get to that point where it's like a revelation, and it was for me too when I first experienced it. Like when they start like, whoa, okay, I've done enough work. I'm starting to like feel this in others, and
Yeah.
this reminds me of the Kalahari Bushmen, which have been one of my biggest like inspirations for this. Some of the oldest shakers on earth, probably the oldest. At least that's what Dr. Bradford Keeney says. And they talk about passing on the shake. Like once one of their shaking shamans are embodied enough with the shake, all of a sudden, boom, they can support others through into the process with hands-on touch, and it's just part of their culture. It's part of what they do. I find it really.
Yeah. Is that through touch or through energetic sort of transmission? Do you know?
I I think both. I think
Both.
it's when you're working on the level of like that subtle energy, it's like it doesn't make a difference really. Like it's whether you're touching or not touching, you're still tapping into the energy body, the subtle um and that's kind of my experience. Like sometimes I usually like to start, with at least start with touching because it's more tangible. it warms them up for the more subtle experience if they're ready to go there. Or then it could just literally be, it could just be like breathing and feeling their energy body. And sometimes that's enough to just have them be held and feel safe to have their release like that. So I like both. And I feel like they're complementary. And there's some people who are like, oh, I don't touch, or I don't do Reiki sort of stuff. I only do pressure points. And I'm kind of like, well, I like to do whatever is necessary.
Yeah. Well, interesting you say Reiki, because when I started practicing TRE as a TRE practitioner, I had done Reiki 8 years prior, but not practiced it. I had forgotten about it in a sense. But then when I was assisting people, they would say, hey, you're doing Reiki on me, because they were Reiki masters and they were reflecting back. And you say, do you do Reiki, Gabriel? And I said, oh, well, I learned it 8 years ago, but I don't do it. Says, well, you are right now, because I can feel the energy from your hands. So then so it wasn't even intentional. It's just the energy is there, I guess, and you're open to it. So I looked into Reiki in the last few years as well, and I've done the master level now as well, to honor that. You know, if I am with somebody, and if that's what needs to come through, and that's what they need, then it's there. So acupressure, Reiki, or anything else. Sometimes I notice, I was going to say, with the subtle, I'm sure you've noticed this as well. Sometimes with the subtle energy, I might look at a person's body and I think, oh, I need to go and raise their shoulders a little bit. And as soon as I think that, their shoulders go up, as an example. So it's almost like there's a communication, an underlying communication, and it's kind of, they're receiving that message, or what my body is sensing, and they're receiving that, and it kind of activates itself. So then I don't have to touch. It's just, it kind of happens. It's just the power of observation, perhaps, and giving it permission and space to, okay, that's what needs to happen.
Yeah.
I have actually another fun experience. Maybe a month ago, I was doing a workshop with a TRE workshop, and I introduced props. So, bolsters and tennis balls and whatever I could find, to get people to start working with the props. They might put them behind their neck or lower back or wherever they wanted to. But one of the things I noticed is that, and again, from our position as a practitioner, I ended up using the props to massage the people, or to touch people with the props in a certain way. So it's like there's an evolution with in this intelligence. It kind of, you can use the prop on yourself, or you can use the prop to assist someone as well. A ball, a beautiful rubber ball, a soft rubber ball was really good, because I could actually massage people in a certain way with it, because it was safer to do that, because my hand wasn't in direct contact with that part of the body. So it actually felt safe to go to that part of the body, because we had that sort of buffer. So it was kind of beautiful how intuition sort of transfers into the use of props for yourself and for others.
Yeah, it's beautiful. This reminds me, I wanted to ask what have been, let's say it could be your one or couple top experiences, or like of, in your about 11 or so years now of exploring this sort of movement. What have been some of your most profound shifts or benefits or experiences? Very curious.
Yeah, one of the understandings is that it's an evolutionary process for human beings. So I think animals have an advantage over humans, in the sense that the animal cannot block the tremor process. It's there, and the animal doesn't have a choice. It can't say, I don't feel comfortable doing it here, or I have to go home first. Or it just does it. As soon as the animal is in a safe place, following a tense situation, like being chased by a lion, the animal has no choice, it'll go into it. So in a way, the animals are quite lucky like that, whereas humans have somehow been able to bypass that process, to block it and sort of tamper with it and kind of switch it off. But the advantage that humans then have is that through individuals like yourself and Dr. David Berselling, to rediscover this process. And now we can use it not just to release tension, but we can use it for, I mean, releasing tension is fine, but then what, you know? There's a deepening. So we can go deeper than an animal. An animal doesn't have the capacity to use it for its sensitivity and evolution, whereas humans do. So that's my insight, is that this process is not just there as a primal instinct to release tension and be done with that. It's so much more than that. You know, it can help us to integrate ourselves in a deeper way and in relationship with others and in relationships with nature. So even shaking in nature is beautiful, because you can go up to a tree and connect with the tree, and then, or the earth, and you will shake differently purely because of that. So I would say for me at the moment, there's been many realizations, but I think that is probably the biggest one, that, you know, to not stop at releasing tension or, you know, working with trauma. There is so much more to it than just that. It's, and as humans, we can evolve with it, but we can learn from it. It's not just primal in the past, it's primal future type thing.
I love that. That's so resonant with like some of our core tenets at shaking medicine. I like to say like there's three main goals, we could say, of shaking medicine. Very generalized because there's infinite possibilities, but letting go of the stuff that doesn't serve us, like the stress, the tension, the trauma, the pain. And then there's coming into balance and homeostasis like the wild animal, which is the Thai family just got home, and I wonder, hopefully that's not like blocking the sound. Does it sound okay? Or is it quite?
It's probably interfering a little bit. Yeah.
Well, what can I do? And then anyway, the third main thing is resonant with what you're saying. It's like cultivating our fullest potential. We can actually integrate our wisdom mind with this instinctive mechanism to cultivate our passions, our goals, our potential, basically, which is creative, which is infinite. And so I put a equal emphasis on that, especially as people progress through shaking medicine, as the letting go of stuff. Early on, it's probably a little more focused on, okay, let's clear out the gunk, the blockages, the trauma, so we can then think about replacing that with vibrant life force energy to cultivate our potential. So I love that you've had that. That's just so, yeah, exactly. This mechanism.
Well, you know, even applying it as massage, self-massage, you know, like, well, that's not about releasing tension. It's just about feeling good. So there's a pleasure in there. And applying it to, I haven't done a lot, but applying it to exercise too, you know, so being on the gymnastic rings in the garden and seeing how the tremor mechanism works with that. So that's more like an exploration. And yeah, potentially, like if humans did that, who knows how the muscles would evolve and exercise and power, strength, and flexibility, you know. So you're mixing it with Zentai Shiatsu, you know, so like adapting this to modalities like Zentai, or with Reiki, or spinal energetic, spinal flow, network chiropractic, you know, integrating it with different modalities. But I think it's important to look at it as that, because otherwise the mind can plateau. But if you say, hey, there's always something else available we haven't discovered yet, you know, whoever you are out there, maybe you'll find out something that Keith hasn't found out yet. Because, if you're a kinesiologist, you're gonna, and I work with a group of kinesiologists at the moment, you're going to look at it in a very different way to myself, you know. So you've got the potential as a kinesiologist to see things in it that someone else cannot. Or, you know, if you're a factory worker, then you might see things in it that I don't see because I'm not a factory worker now. But yeah, I think
Totally
it has
get
that
it.
potential, and everyone can add to it and sort of grow with it and expand.
100%. And it's so important to stay open and keep growing. I really value that, to always keep learning and growing. Excuse me there. I got a little bug here and arriving in Thailand. Yeah, so what about working with clients? You see, like you teach classes, you work one-on-one, like could you share maybe some of your biggest insights from that?
I think one of the biggest insights is kind of like a non-spiritual related insight is I had a gentleman coming to see me who was burnt out to the point where they didn't think they can make it to retirement because mentally they're super agitated, they can't sleep. Their shoulders are so tight that they can barely lift up their shoulders. Sometimes they can barely walk. So I thought this person's in a pretty bad place. I'm not sure how much TRE can help this guy because he's gone pretty far. But I went to do a session with him, and I did the session with him in the workplace where he's actually triggered. And the whole point of the first session, of course, is to introduce TRE and how to activate the process safely and deactivate the process. So there's no goal to work with his burnout at all. It's just learning the mechanism. But even in that session where he was learning the mechanism, he was able to really soften, smile, laugh by the end of the session. His shoulders had regained a lot of its mobility and he had a different outlook in life. So that was one of the, you know, instances where I've worked with someone that, you know, has gone through a lot in life. And I was so surprised to see that even on the first session, which is just an introduction, the power of these, you know, neurogenic tremors or autogenic movements is phenomenal. If you can help someone like that, you know, at one of their worst hours in life, you know, imagine what it can do for someone who is not there. And I think that's one of the, you know, people keep thinking I have to be in a bad state to actually do this, but that's like, no, do it before you get there so you don't get to that kind of state, you know, because, you know, once you get to a place like that, it is hard to turn around. Even when something works, you know, there's all sorts of mechanisms that can come in and, you know, the mind can sort of backfire and sort of do things. But I was touched to see just how effective it was for a person like that on the first session.
That's beautiful. Yeah. That's a testament to how powerful this is. And it's that when we start letting go of the control and allow what our nervous system knows how to do very efficiently, very effectively, like almost like seemingly miracles like this just happen. It turns people's lives around. They have absolutely profound experiences very quickly, often after one session. Like countless people that have done my classes come back saying, wow, like I was not expecting that. They're, you know, they're used to all their controlled practices. And then when they start, as soon as they one class, they start learning through this lens. It's a beautiful lens to start truly learning to let go of control. That just creates such a profound shift that people suddenly awaken. They have these aha insights like, oh my God, wow, I feel so much lighter. I got the best sleep in my life. And actually, just before this call, I was recalling someone that I completely helped alleviate their restless leg syndrome. It wasn't like completely the intention of working with. It was just like, let's just explore the shaking medicine, the tremors, the autogenic movement. And they just reported that after, like, it only took like a couple weeks, they had it kind of bad, and then they never talked about it again. And I asked them, it's like, how's that RLS going? And they're like, what RLS? It's like they had forgotten about it. Almost like,
Wow. Okay.
so. And that's so often the thing it seems, when people are struggling with something, it's in their awareness every day. They're like, dang, this is so hard to kick. But once they kick it, it's like it can kind of quickly just kind of be forgotten about. It's like,
Mm.
that cut you had when you were a kid, wherever it might have been, that just like bugged you so bad it hurt. But now you probably can't even remember exactly where it was. Often that's how healing often goes. It's just like, once we heal it, it just dissolves into the background. And I started reaching out to this doctor after, about, he had this amazing video about the medical perspective of RLS, and he's given all this, the standard RLS, restless leg syndrome, uh, knowledge. He summarized it quite well, but then it all summarized to like, we don't really know what causes it. And I'm like, yeah, I know. You're giving all this like scientific jargon to what you know about it, but then it's like, we still don't know. And anyway, I messaged him and was like, hey, I got a take on this. I've helped people completely alleviate it. It's like, so we'll see what he says. But that's one
Mm.
avenue I'm looking down to because it's kind of, basically I see it as they'll describe it as like the legs just want to move often at night before going to bed. And I'm just like, to me, it's obvious that it's pent up trauma, tension, trapped emotions. And when they relax going to bed, that's when their legs want to move. Well, that's when the tremor
Mm.
mechanism wants to come online, is when we switch off and then we discharge the excess energy. And to me, it feels kind of obvious what it is, but medical science is just like, whoa. They talk about fancy like brain chemicals, and which I'm sure there's truth to it, to all of that, but like, it's very complicated description for something that could be seen as possibly something quite simple.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm.
Anyway, is there anything else you want to share with us?
I think there was a second part to my process. The neurogenic tremors was one, and I was fortunate that that didn't stop for 7 years. I had no choice over it. It would just be there with meditation. But the other movement was that spinal realignment, the postural realignment, which I didn't pay much attention to initially. But at a similar time that I discovered TRE, I came across a yoga teacher, Eric Schiffman, and he calls his yoga freedom yoga, which is basically tuning into your body and allowing your body to do the movement, right? So he explained it basically in this video that I was watching, that you can start off imagining a line of energy from your shoulder to your elbow, and from your elbow to your wrist. And as soon as I did that, I could feel that there is a movement there. And that movement is going back into my lower back. So my lower back is engaged. And it's almost like the arm is an antenna in a way. I think it's the energy that's running through the spine that actually then eventually goes out into the limbs, right? So the spinal realignment, the postural realignment doesn't stop there. And that's where the mistake I did is I thought that's it, but it's actually no, if you let it, that spinal realignment goes into a flow or even a stretch with usually with an undulation. So the more I explore
Spontaneous
that,
qigong is what that looks like to me.
yeah, it could be. And quite often in TRE, or when I practice TRE, there'll be a point where there's a stretch, a spontaneous stretch. I think TRE calls it myofascial stretching. But then you end up in a position where you are stretching, and then there's another tremor to go with that. So
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
almost like
yeah.
now it's the same intelligence, but it has two movements: the flow versus the tremor mechanism, and
Yeah, and that's okay.
then there's the pendiculation as well, which is I don't quite understand pendiculation, but I imagine it's more like a pumping action of the muscles. Is that correct?
Kinda, yeah. It's so I was seeing already that that kind of stretching is a type of pendiculation. That's
Yeah.
that's think about the stretch you do like when you first wake up in the morning, or like a dog does when they wake up. It's like you might reach, have a big yawn or like a body sigh. And it's actually not so much about the stretch as it is about the squeezing action that's happening
Mm.
there. So pendiculation and therapeutic tremoring for me go hand in hand, and in some ways they're kind of the same thing, but I think we can definitely distinguish them. The From what I understand of pendiculation, it's I've actually developed it quite a bit and expanded on to be able to teach people how to do it. But there's true pendiculation is spontaneous, like just like true therapeutic tremoring. It's from the animal mind. It's from the intuition as well. But it's basically when we squeeze things to the midline, whether it's like the bone or the spine or the into the joint, like compacting the joint, let's say. Squeeze the muscles, the fascia, everything in, and then relax, open. That squeezing action is basically uh, a pendiculation. Then when we squeeze and relax, that's creating a full cycle of doing it where it's really good at removing muscular tension, but it's also good, as you were pointing out there, to play and dance with the tremoring. And when we tremor, it might bring us into like a natural part where we start squeezing, or something.
Mm-hmm.
You might think of it as like the body starts tensing, but then if we just be with that, keep allowing the shake if it wants, eventually the body will start to soften, and maybe more the tremoring moves and dances, like this dance back and forth between tremoring and this pendiculation. But then sometimes people need to be kind of trained up to do pendiculation. So I developed this thing, I call it, like just like we have voluntary shaking, I call like when we mimic this as a practice, voluntary
Mm-hmm.
pendiculation. And then after exploring that, which we do in classes often, their body will more and more be start tuning into it spontaneously as well, which is where
Mm.
the really deep action is. Just like with the deeper form of shaking is the therapeutic tremoring versus the voluntary shaking.
Of course. Yeah, I kind of see it. Sometimes there's contraction, which is a negative, right? It's a bracing against the tremoring, whereas the pandiculation is like a positive sort of squeezing or contraction that kind of facilitates further movement.
Yeah, contraction has a negative context, but in this case, it's like if we don't resist it, we go with it. It's the body trying to bring itself into balance. Um, yeah, it's very powerful. And it's
Mm.
funny, over the last few years, I hadn't talked a lot to Richmond since the last time we hung out, but over these last few years, we both independently started uh, going into pendiculation a lot with our teachings. Like and then we found out, like, oh, you've been doing pendiculation too for these last few years. So that's really a beautiful resonance. Um,
potentially part of that evolution, like the more we shake and tremor, then this pendiculation comes more and more online. Maybe we open up to that.
Yeah, definitely. The more we do this, the easier it gets. And yeah, we could keep going and cultivate our fullest potential. Eventually, Nat, if you're someone that wants to use this as part of your toolkit for supporting others in their healing, it's almost just a natural side effect that if you embody it enough, eventually, like the Bushman shamans over there in the Kalahari, like there's just a moment in life where all of a sudden you're like, whoa, I'm awake, I feel this in others now. I still remember mine. I was at a festival in Australia, and my partner's best friend, we were hanging out, and we shared a beautiful hug, and all of a sudden I just was like engulfed by feeling her stuff, her trapped emotions or something. I was like, whoa, what was that? And I could just like intuitively just knew how to hug her, just to support her body to start going into a release. And
Wow.
it just all happened very intuitively. I was like, whoa, never felt that before. It was a long time ago now, and now I felt it probably hundreds of times and working with people. And hardly a day goes by now where I don't do that. I try to do a Zentai session every day with someone. So, yeah.
I think it's a beautiful, what I was going to say, shaking medicine and TRE, what's beautiful about them is that they empower an individual to heal themselves, versus, going to a healer or practitioner that does the healing for you. But, I try to stress that to people. You now have your ticket, you've done your first session, and now you have your lifelong ticket, but you need to participate. If you don't participate, your ticket is unused in a way. So it is empowering, but it requires participation from the individual. And I think sometimes it takes a while for people to kind of recognize that, look, the more I participate, the more beneficial it is for me. But that's why it's a beautiful practice.
Yeah, I totally agree and with that. And it's like we have to do the work, so to speak. We have to do the practice. We have to, in the moments with ourselves, to unravel. There's a threshold in it that I kind of sense with people, where once we do this enough, it's like the mechanism. It's like it gets enough momentum that it's like it becomes easier for the nervous system to just keep going and become free rather than keep holding it all in. And it's like this snowball rolling down a mountain, getting bigger and bigger. It's just like once we reach this threshold, it's like the body wants to keep going, and we don't have to try so hard to like discipline ourselves to show up for the practice to get to that point anymore, because it's just like it becomes this state that our nervous system naturally wants to keep exploring. Yeah, and it's usually not, I think, so far along the way, but generally, yeah, it takes a bit of initial discipline and effort to get to that point. But once someone does, it's like, ooh, so beautiful.
Starts happening all by itself.
Effortless effort. Effortless action. Woo whale. Yeah.
Yeah, I often tell people it's a non-doing practice in a way. Well, with TRE it is. Because people say I do gym and I do this and I do that. I've got family and work. I don't want another thing to add to my schedule. But I often tell people it's actually a time when you do nothing, and when you do nothing, a lot happens. A lot unravels in doing nothing. But it's not that you have to put an effort for it. It's just kind of take the time out and stuff happens.
Well, that's where the effort is, like convincing the mind to take that time out to go do nothing, essentially. I love how you put it. 'Cause that's exactly what it is. It's like, it's so easy in a way. Like we're not like exerting effort really. We're just finding the tremor and then literally relaxing into it. So
Mm.
it's quite generally a very pleasant, rejuvenating practice that when someone brings it into their life will make all those other things they do so much more fruitful and productive that even if they like do the gym for a little less so they can do some trimming, that the gym time that they do will just be that much, like probably twice. I don't want to get exact numbers, but more productive, more
Mm.
efficient. They'll recover quicker, and all that sort of thing.
Yeah, for athletes, it's the recovery mode, essentially, these autogenic movements. So you'd want to do that, especially if you're a professional athlete, to instantly go into recovery mode. I mean, that's phenomenal, you know?
Yeah, I've always said like we need to get shaking medicine into like Olympic and professional sports because their workouts they'll recover so much quicker. They'll recover from their injuries quicker, and just be like they'll just have a big level up. I experienced this in a way with I used to be a very competitive soccer player, and I got into well, I guess at this time it was yoga, but and it's in the direction of this sort of stuff anyway. But just doing like a simple yoga practice for breathing and working out my whole body is like my soccer skills. It felt like they 10x just because I was faster, I was more agile.
Mm.
Yeah, I wish I had this at that point. I feel like it would have been another 10x, but yeah.
I love the video you put up sometimes of Maradona, you know?
Yeah, well, he's like doing this like warm up, and he's like, there's one point in it where he fully goes into a shimmy, essentially, and it's like his belly's like tremoring,
Yeah.
essentially. It was like so cool to see one of the best football players ever end up using this. So couldn't help myself but to share it as a soccer player myself.
Yeah, he must have used it a fair bit because that came so naturally to him. It's not like looked like it was part of his everyday life, pretty much.
Yeah, I reckon it might have been one of his secrets for being such a good player. As I understand it, like the samurai kept had this sort of practice, but they kept it as a secret, and it was one of their secret weapons for being so powerful of a
Right.
warrior class because they could heal from trauma using the injuries and stay super grounded. Makes sense to me.
Wow. That would be beautiful to see their practice actually and how they applied it.
Yeah, well, I think it probably lost, but there are some shaking practices in Japan um, that might be possibly lineage from the samurai. So,
Mm.
yeah, yeah, I feel like this is probably a good ending point. So this doesn't get too terribly long for our viewers out there. There's already so many gold nuggets in here, so many inspiring things we've talked about. Gabrielle, do you have any, where are you in the world, by the way, in case anyone?
I'm in Brisbane. Yeah, so
Brisbane, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Brisbane,
Cool.
Australia. Yes. Yeah, I don't have anything. I would like to meet you in person one day. I think it'd be amazing to have a session together in person.
Yeah,
So,
well,
but we have to follow you around the world, Rishikesh
yeah.
and Thailand, and
I'm putting together a 10-day retreat here in Thailand in a couple months, so maybe that's could be. Um, but we could talk about that later. Yeah. So, do you have any Do you work with people online or just in person? Or?
I've done a little bit of work, even group sessions online, but I do
Yeah,
prefer in person. But
yeah,
yeah, I am open to the online part as well. That's sometimes it's needed, but my preference, of course, is in person.
yeah. Fair enough. Well, I just wanted to hear that in case anyone's interested. Feel free to reach out. Yeah, thank you so much, Gabrielle. I appreciate you,
Thank you, Keith.
brother. So good being your friend and colleague. And let's just keep doing stuff like this over the years and meet each other soon in person, that is.
Shake, stretch, and pendiculate. Yeah,
Yeah.
and see what else comes next.
Yes. Have a
Thank
beautiful
you.
day, everyone, and see you next time.